Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Mondays with Moss. Well, I'm looking out the window. It's pretty gray here in Newtown Square. Snow's on the ground. I don't see any leaves. Oh my God! Today is the darkest day and the longest night of the year. It's the winter solstice, of course. I was reading an article by Elizabeth Diaz in the New York Times on Sunday. And she was talking about something really interesting I wanted to share with you. Winter, according to many legends, is the time of the monster, the Wendigo. According to my acupuncturist, Talia, she might call this the hungry ghost. I'm not sure. What we'll call it the Wendigo. The Wendigo is a monster of winter, dripping with snow and ice, a human-turned cannibal. The hunger is never satisfied. It thinks only of itself. Maybe it represents the darkest part of ourselves, gluttony, greed, and selfishness. What comes to my mind on this day, close to New Year's Eve, is Scrooge in Dickens' story, The Christmas Carol. According to Dr. Kimmerer at SUNY College of Environmental Science and Forestry, winter is a treachery of vulnerability. Well, we have our own particular Wendigo and vulnerability in 2020-21, and I think that monster we can call COVID-19. We have 300,000 people dead in this country. 16 million people been affected. Next 3 months might be the hardest, according to Dr. Robert Redford, director of the CDC and prevention, with other 150,000 people dead maybe by February. In the meantime, we have families separated, social isolation, unemployment benefits are running out for many, almost 13 million people, inconsistency of our government support. Are we going to get a distribution of vaccine? Who's going to get it first? Are the rich going to get it? Are we going to have fairness? It's a perfect recipe for the monster, for the Wendigo, a perfect recipe for despair and greed and trauma and ongoing PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Many of us will survive, but we're going to carry with us, especially our children and maybe young teenagers, some anxiety for quite a while. But there is an antidote. So I've been thinking about in my next series, in this series called 52 Things You Need to Know, really 1 week at a time is giving you one way of thinking, one recipe, one skill set to help keep you focused and keep your feet on the ground and keep you out of the grips of the Wendigo or the hungry ghost. So how not to give into the ghost, how to stay hopeful. Last week I talked about staying grounded and staying centered, an ability to stay in the present and tone down your anxiety. Being realistically optimistic, which is today's topic. How to be realistically optimistic. You remember there was a promise that darkness will be followed by light. Light will prevail over darkness. In 3 months, spring returns. What can we do, though, to stay grounded and be realistic and grounded and function until then and not lose our hope? Well, number one is the most basic. Use your common sense. Wear your mask. Maintain social distance. Wash your hands. I love the line in Last of the Mohicans when he says, one of the characters says, stay alive, when he has to jump off into the waterfall. Don't know if you saw that movie. So, secondly, don't get caught by the hungry monster and conspiracy theories. And don't be too naive that the vaccine is going to cure everything. The hungry monster and the Wendigo wants us to be negative, and the mind has a negativity bias. Maybe that's where the Wendigo comes from in our heads. You know, we have about 2,500 conscious thoughts a day, but 2,000 of them are negative. It's a perfect time in these gloomy days, short days, long nights, to have regrets, remember your resentments, to be anxious. Oh, God, such a struggle sometimes, isn't it, just to get out of bed? So here's another one. Look for beauty. Look for small signs of beauty. Look, in the coldest of nights, the sky is really black, and the stars can be seen. It's a really quite beautiful appearance when you take a walk at late night and look in the skies. I love Christmas lights. People put Christmas lights. I'm Jewish. I don't have Christmas lights, but I love to see them. Trees that are all lit up. Buy a house plant. Take care of your plant. Light candles. You know, in Judaism, we practice a ritual about this time, pretty near Christmas, called Hanukkah. It's called the Festival of Lights. It's a recreation of the primitive, primeval battle between darkness and light. Will life prevail, and will courage and hope prevail over despair? In this tradition, each night a candle is lit. So it's one night on the first night, on the second night 2 nights, until finally eight candles are lit, and the room is just aglow with light. So, like lighting candles, tomorrow each day gets a little longer. The ascent of the sun starts a little earlier and sets a little later. Each day gets brighter. Each day gets brighter. Something to look forward to. Another thing you can do is be compassionate and commit acts of service. Help someone less fortunate than you. Call someone and tell them you miss them or love them. I had a great conversation with my brother last night. Really enjoyed it. I've not spoken to him for a while, so it was great to catch up with him. Be kind to yourself. Let go of your past regrets and resentments. Another good thing to do in terms of realistic optimism is look over family albums, maybe share personal stories from your family about personal survival and hope, that we can kind of pass down a legacy, that we're not losers, we're not victims, we're survivors and navigators. I was talking to my granddaughter, and she said she wants to learn how to play guitar. My grandson was playing piano. They want to learn guitar. He's also learning how to draw. Me, I'm continually learning how to paint. So learning is another great way to stay connected, stay centered, and to remind yourself you're alive. And because the monster, the Wendigo, hates us being happy. It wants us to be miserable so it can take us and consume us. I love this one, be inspired. So I've spoken to you before about, I think it's Major Stockdale and John McCain when they were in prison in Hanoi Hilton. They were there for 6 years. And Stockdale talked about when he got out, every day knew they were going to be tortured. And he asked the question, the reporters asked him, who survived? He said, well, the naive optimists, the ones who just said the government's going to take care of us, they'll get us out by Christmas, get us out by springtime. They're the ones who fell apart. They became victims. They became really quite traumatized. The ones who stayed together were the ones who said, hey, look, we're going to be tortured every day. Let's get through one day at a time. And so they took a certain amount of torture, and then they disclosed certain kinds of information to the North Vietnamese, but nothing really important. My brother Bruce, who's a criminologist at University of Buffalo, talks about prisoners, lifelong prisoners, and lifelong sentences in prisons. And they don't look to the future. If you look to the future, they'll be destroyed. They can't think, there's no future. So they live one day at a time. Okay? So, also, like Dr. Fauci, he's living more than one day at a time, that's for sure. I was reading in the paper also, there's been an 18% increase in med school applications because of Fauci. This is called being inspired. And by the way, by being inspired, I spent a little time last night looking up realistic optimism in the movies. So here's some movies you might want to think about to look at with your family. Just remind you that we're going to get out of winter. The monster's not going to get us. Shawshank Redemption, a great story about friendship and perseverance. How about Rocky? Most of us know Rocky. Struggle, hard work, difficulties of everyday life, a man's struggle to be somebody, a person who is valued. There's a good movie called Into the Wild. A man gives up a profitable career and possessions, and what does he do? He chooses an alternate life plan in today's competitive world. He totally transforms his life. An old movie with Jimmy Stewart, It's a Wonderful Life. Again, a movie about values, personal value and relationships. A man who's despairing because he thinks he's going to be bankrupt and go to jail, and he wants to commit suicide. But the angel reminds him about who he is, and love is present. And the movie, The World's Fastest Indian, it's not about an Indian running, it's about a motorcycle. A story about Burt Monroe, a story about a man's belief in himself, not giving up hope when everyone else told him he couldn't do it. He built his 1920 Indian motorcycle and set the land world speed record in 1967. A couple more. Forrest Gump, childlike innocence, someone who tried to make people happy even though he was called slow-witted and bullied. Great story with Tom Hanks. One of my favorite movies is The Greatest Game Ever Played, a story of passion, about golf. A story about a young boy's passion despite the father's disapproval, a story of dreams, of grit, struggle, and success. All focused on handle the stresses, have grit, but maintain a sense that we will prevail, like McCain and Stockdale. Okay? So the bottom line is, look, all this will pass. Practice realistic optimism. Stay grounded. In the meantime, until the sun really, each day will get longer, that's true. Spring is about 3 months away. Don't be impulsive or reckless. Take care of yourself and others. Show a little love. Create some beauty. Light some candles. And remember, every day gets a little longer. Live another day, one day at a time. Keep the faith that we can meet the Wendigo. We can meet the Wendigo head on, our monster of the COVID, and we're not going to give in to him. Hang in there, folks. Have a great Christmas, a great Hanukkah, and I'll see you next Monday, okay? I got a great conversation for you next Monday based upon this. Anyway, be well and put a little light in your life. Bye-bye.